Every year since 2017, I've done a wrap up of what's gone on the US far right. And it's jumped platforms several times, but for the last few years, the New Republic has run it. This year's wrap up came out in between the news from Venezuela and Minneapolis. So, in case you missed it, or if you just prefer to get your information in this format, I wanted to do a video of the article. And I'll put a link to the original article as well as to the previous year's wrap ups below. The first year of Donald Trump's term was marked by the rapid implementation of his far right program. From ICE to Doge, from anti-DEI to anti-Antifa, and from bombing boats to $400 million bribes, Trump's regime has turned out even more extreme than feared after he was elected to a second term in November 2024. While his words and actions as president have been covered extensively, as have those of advisors like Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon, the grassroots far right and its influence over the administration has received far less attention. One of Trump's first acts of his new term was to pardon hundreds of people who had been arrested and, in many cases, convicted for their role in the January 6, 2021 takeover of the U.S. Capitol. Once pardoned, many of these individuals wasted no time in calling for retribution against the FBI and prosecutors and for trying to sue the government. And several have been subsequently arrested for crimes including kidnapping and child molestation. But the most important event for the far right in 2025 was the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who was the head of the right-wing organization Turning Point USA, or TPUSA, which was a political action group focused on recruiting young people. Now, Kirk, who has since been deeply whitewashed, was an anti-trans and racist propagandist, best known for debating liberals on college campuses. And after his death, he was made into a Christian martyr, and Trump even awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom for being a bigot. Many people afterwards who criticized him online were fired or suspended, and the most prominent of these was late night host Jimmy Kimmel, although public outcry forced his return. Trump has also created an environment where far right terrorists are well positioned to commit attacks as the federal monitoring of these groups is being dismantled. Law enforcement training, tracking studies, and prevention programs have all been cut over the last year, along with reviews of the military's anti-extremism initiatives. The influence of conspiracy theorists on federal officials has also increased dramatically. Now, the most visible of these are the anti-vax views of Health and Human Sciences Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but the most outlandish was Trump's Truth Social post promoting med beds, which journalist Kelly Wheel describes as, quote, a fabled medical instrument that does everything from reversing aging to regrowing missing limbs. And these conspiracy theories have only been amplified as far-right influencers have been given special access to the administration. In October, the Pentagon banned reporters from its press pool unless they pledged to only publish official statements, which no major outlet, including Fox News, agreed to. Instead, they were replaced by friendly influencers and conspiracy theorists such as Laura Loomer, who wields unprecedented influence over the president and has, through her recommendation, had him fire several national security officials. Now, starting a decade ago, the alt-right created a distinct aesthetic, and its images and slogans have now filtered up into the social media of the Department of Homeland Security, of ICE, and of the Border Patrol. Their accounts now post memes like the neo-Nazi favorite Moon Man, anti-Semitic song lyrics, and slogans referencing white supremacist books. And as longtime digital innovators, white supremacists are taking advantage of new platforms and technologies. Some use AI to produce propaganda and even to plan terrorist attacks. Elon Musk celebrated Trump's inauguration with a Nazi salute. His AI Grok has called itself Mecha Hitler, and his online Grokopedia encyclopedia cited white supremacist websites over 100 times. And not just that, neo-Nazis and the online child abuse cult 764 are recruiting on Roblox, which is an online gaming platform used by millions of children. In addition, the administration has also gone to some efforts to court and help the European far right, which it's allied with. Trump himself is close to Hungary's Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, as well as Britain's head of the Reform Party, Nigel Farage. Meanwhile, J.D. Vance met with the leader of the far-right Alternative for Germany party and has called on other more moderate European parties to remove their, quote, firewalls against cooperating with these far-right groups. And Trump's new national security strategy even celebrates these parties, railing against, quote, civilization erasure in the form of immigration from countries that are majority people of color. Although remaining strong under Biden, the grassroots far-right groups have not exploded as much in popularity this year, and we think it's because the administration is actually running in front of these groups. It's enacting the programs that they've advocated for years. But nonetheless, of course, some of these groups had quite successful years. Kirk's murder led to a dramatic rise in popularity of his TPUSA, which proselytizes in schools, trains young right-wing activists, and has now 2,000 chapters. This Christian group's prominence has become so strong that the Texas state government is promoting TPUSA clubs in high schools, and even TikTok was a sponsor of its December conference. Now, ironically, Kirk's loudest critic on the right, the white supremacist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes, also received a huge attention boost after Kirk's death. Fuentes' Groyper movement works to influence GOP circles from inside, especially by pushing anti-Semitism, and its fans have been climbing up the career ladder. For example, longtime ally Wade Searley is part of the Pentagon press pool, and Fuentes' defender Paul Ingracia is acting general counsel of the General Services Administration. Fuentes himself appeared on Tucker Carlson's show, and this caused a bunch of outcry on the right, especially after the Heritage Foundation's leader, Kevin Roberts, said that Fuentes' anti-Semitic views were acceptable right-wing positions to express. Now, this led to a fight breaking out in MAGA circles over whether anti-Semitism and even sympathy for the German Nazis was acceptable. And so, for example, in the New York Young Republicans Club on the Upper East Side of Manhattan even hosted open white supremacists and anti-Semites at its annual gala. The Proud Boys had a fairly quiet year, which wasn't expected, and in part because Enrique Tarrio was pardoned for his role on January 6th, and so there was an assumption that he would revive the organization. But while he had been in prison, it had split into two between his supporters and opponents, and neither of them were able to pick up a bunch of traction this year. We think because there were no large-scale clashes with anti-fascists, and that's what they usually recruited on in the past. In fact, Tarrio himself went to Portland, Oregon in November and showed up to an anti-ICE protest, but was unable to provoke an incident. One group that has been very successful in the last year, and in fact, the last couple of years, is the Active Clubs, which are a fascist network that do martial arts trainings. They've continued to expand globally and now have 187 chapters in 27 countries. And their obvious potential for violence has drawn the attention of various intelligence services, and it was found out that a Buckingham Palace guard had been a member of Active Club England. Another more extreme group called the Base, which promotes terrorism, has also expanded throughout Europe, leading to numerous arrests there. Its leader, Ronaldo Nazzaro, who's from the United States, now lives in Russia, and he's been offering cash bounties to followers who carry out attacks in Ukraine. And if people don't know, neo-Nazis are actually split between Ukraine and Russia, and some of them fight for Ukraine and some of them fight for Russia. Both Russian neo-Nazis and Ukrainian neo-Nazis, but foreign ones as well, will travel to one or the other country to fight. And last, the neo-Nazi group Blood Tribe eschews these other groups' more sophisticated approach. It holds rallies with an intimidating visual look. They'll wear masks and uniforms and wave swastika flags, and this has drawn a lot of media attention. So, although they have become the most prominent neo-Nazi group in the country, they haven't been able to really quite recruit in a way to match their profile. Lawsuits are a frequent tool used against the far right. Dominion Voting Systems, who are falsely accused of rigging the 2020 election, won a $67 million lawsuit that was settled with Newsmax. The fascist group Patriot Front was ordered to pay $2.75 million to a black man who was assaulted during one of their 2022 marches. And there are two ongoing lawsuits against the anti-Semitic Goyim Defense League for a harassment campaign in Nashville. But the far right also uses the courts sometimes. And in addition to the J6 lawsuits, Trump is suing the BBC for $10 billion over an edit of a speech that he gave before J6. The Oath Keepers leader Stuart Rhodes, whose J6 sentence was commuted, said he's preparing to relaunch the militia organization. But meanwhile, he's filed a $25 million lawsuit against USA Today, journalist William Carlos, and his own ex-wife, Tasha Adams. But not to be outdone, Jacob M. Jelly Chansley, aka the QAnon shaman, who is not me, let me say, is suing Trump and others for $40 trillion. And just like every year, far-right activists are being arrested constantly. Trump supporter Brian J. Cole Jr. was arrested for planting bombs outside both the Democratic and Republican Party headquarters in D.C. the night before January 6th. And he's a guy people have been, the FBI has been searching for a number of years. Many of the other arrests, however, are related to what's called Nihilist Violent Extremism, or NVE, which is a new FBI category. It refers to an online milieu that mixes Nazi Satanism, neo-Nazi terrorism, school shooter fetishists, and the online child abuse cult 764, and together they form a kind of amorphous mix and match of toxic extremes. The FBI hasn't opened 350 investigations into 764. This is one of the few places in which anti-fascists and the FBI come together in understanding the threat of a particular current on the far right. Now, 764, it incorporates other NVE currents, and its members sextort and threaten minors into producing pornography, engaging in self-harm, and even to commit suicide. Again, it started in the US, but it spread globally, and numerous members were arrested in 2025, including leaders War and Trippy, as well as White Tiger, who was arrested for successfully coercing a 13-year-old to commit suicide online. Neo-Nazis who are involved in terrorist propaganda and actions have also been hit hard in the last year. Patrick Crusius, who killed 23 people during the 2019 El Paso Walmart massacre, received 90 life sentences. Maniac murder cult's Mikhail Chakhetvili has pled guilty to soliciting terrorism, while former Atom Waffen Division leader Brandon Russell was sentenced to 20 years for plotting to attack the Baltimore power grid. And this guy's like, this guy did this while he was on probation for his last arrest. Anyway, not always the brightest people. But meanwhile, the International Terrorgram Collective was declared a foreign terrorist organization, and one of its leaders in the US, Dallas Humber, was sentenced to 30 years for soliciting murder. And last, Terrorgram also influenced Nikita Kasip, who was arrested for murdering both of his parents as well as planning to kill Trump. While there were no explicitly white supremacist massacres in the US in 2025, several fit the NVE concept. During the Antioch high school shooting, one person was killed, and although the perpetrator was black, his manifesto referenced Terrorgram. Meanwhile, the perpetrator of the Annunciation Catholic school shooting, where 2 people were killed, painted their guns with the names of both racist murderers and apolitical school shooters. So, as white supremacist massacres blend seamlessly into apolitical ones and then into school shootings, perhaps the most telling slogan was painted on one of the guns: "There is no message." What starts as politics ends in nihilism. And it's the same nihilism that underlies Trump's gratuitous cruelty towards the most marginal members of society, even as his followers proclaim their own victimhood. In 2025, the far-right grassroots was largely eclipsed by the administration's blitzkrieg, but as its inertia breaks, which it is, new possibilities are starting to open. And so we should be very concerned about what runs through them, that it may potentially flank Trump on the right, especially in the wake of his dismantling of those government apparatuses that keep an eye on far-right terrorism.